In today's video, I'm bringing you my nonfiction November pile of possibilities. Now, I've got 12 books for you, and I'm very excited about them. Very excited about reading them, of course, and very excited to share them with you because they just look so good. Now, I had planned actually to film today a cozy mysteries video, and so I put on this shirt. It says murder shows and comfy clothes. And then I just didn't have the energy for that video because there's so many books coming in that video that I would be here quite a while filming. And yeah, I also didn't have the energy to change shirts. So this is what you get. But I am excited about these nonfiction books. Now, I'm not going to share any of the books I am currently reading for Historathon Q4, even though those are all, of course, nonfiction history books, which you can check out if you go back and watch my pile of possibilities for Historathon Q4 video, which I'll link at the end of this video and down in the description below. So what nonfiction books have I got for you that are not related specifically to history, pretty much? Well, 2 are BookTube Prize finalists. Yep, so they're sort of related to history, but I wouldn't really call it history. It was so recent. Yeah. Then I've got 5 outstanding memoirs, 1 medical book, and 4 books that are all about nature. Now, of these dozen books I'm going to talk to you about, I only have 2 in physical form right now. A couple are on their way to me from the library. I had to place them on hold. And the rest I'm reading in ebook format because that was the least expensive way to go. Of course, whenever I read an ebook, if I absolutely love it, I will start looking for it on sale or, you know, at used sales or wherever I go. But meanwhile, I have no problem reading it in digital form. I'm going to start with the 2 books that made it to the finalist round for the Nonfiction BookTube Prize this year. One of them actually won, so if you know, you know. First, I have Everyone Who Is Gone Is Here by Jonathan Blitzer, the subtitle being The United States, Central America, and the Making of a Crisis. Now, I had planned to read this book before it ever became a finalist in the BookTube Prize contest. I had seen a few people on BookTube review it, and it sounded really interesting. But yeah, I haven't started it yet, and I was super excited to hear how well it did in the contest. But a little about it, everyone who makes the journey faces an impossible choice. Hundreds of thousands of people who arrive every year at the U.S.-Mexico border travel far from their homes. And for years, the majority came from El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. But many more have begun their journey much farther away. Some flee persecution, others crime or hunger. They may have already been deported, but the United States remains their only hope for safety and prosperity. They will take their chances. As Jonathan Blitzer dramatizes with forensic, unprecedented reporting, this crisis is the result of decades of misguided policy and sweeping corruption. Brilliantly weaving the stories of Central Americans whose lives have been devastated by chronic political conflict and violence with those of American activists, government officials, and the politicians responsible for the country's tragically tangled immigration policy, Blitzer reveals the full layered picture of this vast and unremitting conflict. So I try to keep track of the issues all surrounding immigration and a lot of the personal stories, even though it's very difficult. But I feel like this book is going to give me a much more thorough, comprehensive picture. And I definitely feel like I need that and want that. So I have heard from many people I trust on BookTube that it is a difficult read. So I'm expecting that. I may have to do it in phases. We shall see. The other book in this category, the book that actually won the 2025 Nonfiction BookTube Prize, is Challenger, a true story of heroism and disaster on the edge of space by Adam Higginbotham. Now, you know, we all think we know, those of us who are old enough anyway, what happened. A lot of us saw it on television as it happened, but I wanted more of the backstory to this. Partially because I knew there was a lot I didn't know, partially because this moment in time really stands out for me. On that date, January 28th, 1986, I was actually in a hairdresser salon getting my hair cut, which I think might have been the first time I ever did that. And it was just 3 days before my wedding. And I was sitting there and we were doing the little chat thing you do. And there was a TV on there. And the hairstylist and I both became more interested in what was happening on the TV than what she was doing with my hair. We stopped and we listened. We knew this was going to be a fantastic, great moment in history. What we didn't know, of course, what no one knew, was the terrible disaster that was about to happen in front of our eyes. And, you know, when it did, we were speechless like everyone else. If not screaming, you were speechless at how this could have happened. And through the years since then, that's the question that's lingered at the back of my mind. Really, how could that have happened? And this book, from everything I've heard from those who've read it and from the reviews I've read, this book goes into the details, often very, very angering, often very, very sad or disappointing, usually both, that made it possible for that horrible catastrophe to happen. So I'm going to be reading that one, perhaps also in phases. We shall see about that one too. Moving on to the memoir category. I've got 5 memoirs I'm reading this month. I don't usually read more than 1 a month. I'm not really sure how this happened, but I'm here for it. Last month, I read a memoir, Life from Scratch by Sasha Martin, which was a food memoir. That was fabulous. I really, really enjoyed it. Maybe that's why I drifted toward more memoirs for Nonfiction November. The first one is Where Rivers Part, A Story of My Mother's Life by Kalia Yang, published in 2024. Now, this is set during the Vietnam War, to begin with, in Laos, amongst the Hmong people. And then it slowly proceeds from there forward. So, born in 1961 in war-torn Laos, Chu's childhood was marked by the violence of America's secret war and the CIA recruitment of the Hmong and other ethnic minorities into this lost cause. By the time Chu was a teenager, the U.S. had completely vacated Laos, and the country erupted into genocidal attacks on the Hmong people, who were labeled as traitors. Fearing for their lives, Chu and her family left everything they knew behind and fled the village for the jungle. Perpetually on the run, on the brink of starvation, Chu eventually crossed paths with the man who would later become her future husband. Leaving her own mother behind, she joined his family at a refugee camp, a choice that would haunt her the rest of her life. Eventually becoming a mother herself, Chu raised her daughters in a state of constant fear and hunger until they were able to immigrate to the U.S., where the determined couple enrolled in high school, even though both of them were nearly 30 and were working grueling jobs to provide for their family. So now her daughter, Kalia Yang, reveals her mother's astonishing saga with tenderness and clarity, giving voice to the countless resilient refugees who are often overlooked as one of the essential foundations of this country. Now, I had read a picture book by this author, Kalia Yang, and I loved it. It was beautiful, so touching. And so when I saw this, I grabbed it. I also found out that there are 2 books that precede it. It's actually a memoir trilogy, so I'm sure I'm going to go back and read those other 2 books as well. So the second memoir I want to share with you is quite different. It's called Enslaved by Ducks, and the subtitle is How One Man Went from Head of the Household to Bottom of the Pecking Order by Bob Tarte. Now, this book was published in 2003, and I've had it on my shelf for several years. Keep meaning to read it. November's the month. Let me tell you what it says about it. When Bob Tarte bought a house in rural Michigan, he was counting on a tranquil heaven. Then Bob married Linda. She wanted a rabbit, which seemed at the time innocuous enough, but that was just the beginning. Wouldn't a parrot be cute? Linda asked. Bob suddenly found himself constructing pens, buying feed, clearing duck waste, spoon feeding at mealtime. One day he realized he'd become a servant to a relentlessly demanding family, and a motley crew it was. Writing as someone who's been ambushed by the way in which animals, even cranky ones, can win their way into the heart, Bob Tarte reveals the truth of animal ownership and who really owns whom. Well, I have several ducks of my own, as well as chickens and goats and sheep and lots of cats and a dog, a border collie. Yeah, Enslaved by Ducks sounds like something I just need to read. Keeping on with the bird theme, I suppose, I'm also going to be reading a memoir by Amy Tan, and it's called The Backyard Bird Chronicles. Now, this is basically a journal by Amy that recounts her days of watching the birds in her Northern California backyard and slowly but surely becoming an actually official bird watcher, whatever that means. I would like to become one. I have bought the binoculars and some reference books about birds, so I want to join this club. But yeah, that's what she's doing here, along with some illustrations she's drawn and her musings, her thoughts on the current difficulties that we in this country and in this world are facing. This was published recently, just last year, in fact, in 2024. I love Amy Tan's writing, so I'm looking forward to sampling this nonfiction work by her. Now, I'm going to share another memoir with you, but it is completely different than what I've talked about so far, and it is Future Boy. Back to the Future and My Journey Through the Space-Time Continuum by Michael J. Fox. Now, Michael J. Fox is very special to me and actually to probably every one of my kids. We just love his trilogy and we love his acting overall in general. More than that, we love him as a person. What a great man he is. Despite his struggles, so compassionate, so determined to fight the Parkinson's disease that, attacked him so early in life, and so eager and so sure that at some point we will find a cure. And that means a lot to me. My own grandfather died from complications from Parkinson's. And yeah, so I'm just really tied to this guy. And he's only a few years older than me. So as he succeeded at a young age, I watched from afar and thought, wow, this is somebody great. Even before I knew how great a man he was going to show us he was. Now, my youngest child, who is 19 and a half now in college studying art, they love Michael J. Fox. They're kind of obsessed with him in the sense of, a real fan of his acting. So they have watched his movies so many times. They have all of his books, and they got this one when it was released just a few days ago and read it the first day and said, Mom, you have to read this, which of course I was already planning to do. Now, how is this memoir different from the other memoirs that Michael J. Fox has already published? Well, it's set apart from his other writings in that this book focuses on one year in particular, the most momentous year of his life up to that point, maybe ever, 1985. So back then I was in college and he was the star of an award-winning, hugely popular sitcom called Family Ties. It was in its third season already, and he was then tapped to star in the movie Back to the Future. But the only way that could happen is if Michael was willing to rehearse and tape, do all the filming all day for Family Ties, and then go across town to Universal Studios and film at night the movie Back to the Future. He did that for 4 or 5 months, and then they rushed out the movie the summer of 1986, and yeah, we all know the story from there. Became a blockbuster, of course, and deservedly so. So I'm looking forward to reading this memoir and seeing how he juggled. How did he sleep? How did he stay sane? I don't know, but I want to find out. And I have so much respect for this guy. I'm going to always read whatever he puts out. The fifth and final memoir that I'm going to be reading for Nonfiction November is written by the wonderful, amazing Ursula LeGuin. Now, she published this in 2017, toward the very end of her life, and it is called No Time to Spare, Thinking About What Matters. Now, this was actually a collection of some of the very best writings that Ursula had put out on her blog of the same name, I believe, No Time to Spare. And the writings are mostly about her concern for, but her hope for the world around her. As she says, and I quote, "How rich we are in knowledge and in all that lies around us yet to learn. Billionaires, all of us." So I love Ursula K. Le Guin. I love all of her sci-fi work. I haven't read it all. There's so much, but what I've read has just been incredibly good, and I look forward to reading more. But I thought, it's time for me to start really getting into some of her nonfiction too. She has several books which I look forward to reading and sharing with you. And this is the first one of those that I'm going to tackle, No Time to Spare. Sort of in line with No Time to Spare is my next book, not a memoir, but close. It's a book about medicine by a doctor, very famous book, Being Mortal, Medicine and What Matters at the End by Atul Gawande, published in 2014, so not new, 11 years old. Now, I read Being Mortal soon after it was published, and I really got a lot out of it. It made a deep impact on me, but it's been over 10 years, and maybe because I'm getting older, I feel the need to read it again and think more about it, both in relation to my father, who is now past 80 and in declining health, and in relation to myself. I just had my 60th birthday. Time keeps ticking. This book, what's it about? Medicine has triumphed in modern times, transforming birth, injury, infectious diseases from harrowing to manageable. But in the inevitable condition of aging and death, the goals of medicine seem too frequently to run counter to the interests of the human beings. Nursing homes, preoccupied with safety, pin patients into railed beds. Hospitals isolate the dying. Checking for vital signs long after the goals of a cure have become moot. Doctors, committed to extending life at all costs, continue to carry out devastating procedures that in the end extend suffering. Gawande is a practicing surgeon, and his idea is that the end goal should be quality of life, not necessarily length of life. And he offers a lot of practical ideas in here, shows us examples of systems that are working much better than the American system, to address the true needs of the individual at the end of life. And yeah, I definitely want to read it again and think about it in relation both to my own health and my family's. And the final 4 books in my 2025 Nonfiction November pile of possibilities are all nature related. And 3 of them I actually am just going to give you the bare bones information about, because I talked about them a bit at length in one of my Historathon pile of possibility videos. I didn't get to them though for Historathon, so now I want to try to get to them, or at least some of them, for Nonfiction November. What are they? Well, first, we have Requiem for America's Best Idea, National Parks in the Era of Climate Change by Michael J. Yohim, published in 2022. So I'm going to link the video below where I talked about these nature books. The second one, The Brother Gardeners, Botany, Empire, and the Birth of an Obsession, written by Andrea Wolf, published in 2009. And then another book by Andrea Wolf. I really, really want to read this one. It's a biography, The Invention of Nature, Alexander von Humboldt's New World, published in 2015. And again, like I said, by Andrea Wolf. Alexander von Humboldt was an incredible man, an incredible scientist, basically the father of the environmental movement. So yeah, I want to get to that one. And then the 4th one is actually a book I did not talk about for Historathon. It's simply a straight-on nature writing book. It's called Forest Euphoria, subtitle being The Abounding Queerness of Nature, published in 2025, just this year, written by Patricia Onanawu-Kashian. I hope I pronounced that somewhat correctly. Growing up, Patricia Kashian felt most at home in the swamps and culverts near her house in the Hudson Valley in New York. A child who frequently felt out of place, too much of one thing, not enough of another, she found acceptance in these settings amongst other amphibious beings. In snakes, snails, and above all, fungi, she saw her own developing identities as a queer, neurodivergent person reflected back at her. And in them, too, she found a personal path to a life of science. Yeah, I'm all about that type of detailed nature writing and sounds like a bit of an autobiography of this person's way, their path through to being a scientist. Very intriguing to me, and I will be sure to let you know what I think of it. So those are my dozen books that I have on my Nonfiction November pile of possibilities. In addition to the books for Historathon that I'm reading this quarter, which are divided into two categories, basically. I have a bunch about California history, which is a personal project of mine. And then I have a bunch about the national park system here in the United States, how it got started and how it evolved through the years, which was an idea that was triggered in me by a book I read by Diane Smith called Letters from Yellowstone, an epistolary novel about a woman naturalist just after the beginning of Yellowstone National Park, which I found an amazing 5-star read. And yeah, it got me going on learning all about the origins and evolution of our U.S. national park system. So tell me, are you reading anything for Nonfiction November? Let me know. Tell me what it's about. I might just add it to my list. If not for this month, definitely for one of the upcoming months. Because to be honest, I read nonfiction all year round. I can't help myself. I'm just a very curious person and I always want to learn more. So I'm always, juggling nonfiction with fiction because I do love my fiction too. So yes, that's what I've got for you today. And I will be back soon with a video all about cozy mysteries of all sorts for you to enjoy in November and December as you snuggle by the fire, or maybe just under the covers in bed with your hot chocolate or coffee or whiskey or whatever you prefer. I also have my Mary Stuart wrap-up video coming soon, in which I'll be talking about all the Mary Stuart books I read for suspense in October and my takeaway thoughts about Mary Stuart, the writer, the queen of suspense, and where I see this reading event going next year in October. But until then, I'm wishing you all lots of fun, interesting nonfiction reading.